up. It has Well, welcome everyone to Unity of Jupiter, an out-of-this-world spiritual community. Got my whole support group here, mother, sister, wife, friends, so feeling pretty good. Bodie and I were in this room one time, and we were going to change the name from Unity of the Gardens to Unity of Jupiter, and I'm like, Unity of Jupiter, it's out of this world. And he's like, oh, I love that, right? So then he took that and changed it to an out-of-this-world spiritual community, but it reminded when we moved here, our son was in a little Montessori school, and he was about 8 years old, and they called my wife in one day, and they said, we're concerned about your son. And she's like, why? He goes, well, he thinks he's moving to Jupiter. And she's like, he is moving to Jupiter, Florida. But I want to thank Reverend Bodie, if he's watching today, or whoever is, for giving me this chance again. I guess my impossible dream of becoming a minister is becoming a reality now, as this is number 6 time giving a sermon. And thanks to Reverend Bodie again, next week will be the 7th time, and I'll be down in Key West again. So I'm actually taking this show on the road once in a while. Who knows? Who knows where that might lead? So my talk today kind of had two titles. The Game of Life, which is what I called a talk a few months ago, and then also Be Happy. And Be Happy was really a reason for my spiritual awakening here. And I'm going to have Jane. So in 1985, my mother told me to put on a tie. I just moved out of California, and she said, put on a tie and jacket and go to this man's birthday party. And the incredible thing is, this birthday party is on YouTube. 1985, me. So Jane's going to show us 2 little clips from this just quickly. This is astrologer Carol Reiter. He was the astrologer to the stars. He was on the cover of Time magazine. And there I am. Saying happy birthday to someone I have no idea if it's a man or a woman. I don't even know what I'm doing there. I'm just like, this is really something. However, later on we would meet him, and we'll fast forward to the second clip. Can you turn it up a little bit?
I would like to interview you both. What is your name, please?
I am Mary Roebling.
And here's Carol Reiter. And what is the occasion?
The occasion is Carol Reiter's 85th birthday, and we're all friends of his and very proud of him. And he's been a great help to many, many people throughout the entire world.
And I love my friends. I love everybody. I'm so happy. I don't know when I've ever been happy in my life.
Fabulous, Carol. We did the same thing last year. You have so many friends
that's
here.
Good, Jane. So he was like that every day.
Again,
the happiest person he'd ever met. And so this is 1985. He's 85 years old, born in the year 1900. I'm 23. And besides my great-grandmother, this was the oldest person I'd ever really had a conversation with ever. So, but he was like that every single day, and I wanted to know why. I wanted to know why he was so happy. And that became my mission for the next 3 years. And so I chose a scripture for today, and it's from St. John 16th chapter, 33rd verse. And it goes that in me you might have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Be of good cheer. Not joyful, be of good cheer. And what I've come to realize is that in me where we have peace is actually in me and in you. Even though it may be God or Jesus or whatever we want to call it, it still resides within us. And it's that's where we have to go to really find it. And when we get outside of ourselves, into the world, into these problems of the world, that's where we find unhappiness, and this whole thing shrinks. So I love this verse, be of good cheer. That's all we got to do. So after meeting Carol, I wanted to find out, why he was so happy. So he told us, he goes, why don't you give me a call and we'll go out to lunch. So I think 3 weeks later we call him up. He's like, that took a long time. And we went out to lunch with him in Hollywood a few times. And then he invited us to church. Well, that was a shocker. I'm like, if church is what you got to do to be happy, I don't know if we're ready for this yet. And we're 23, just moved to Hollywood. We had other things on our mind besides church. And however, sort of, begrudgingly, we agreed. And so we get this call on a Sunday morning, get up, you lazy lowlifes. I'm picking you up and we're going to church. And we hopped in his car and down the street we went in Hollywood. And we end up in a little church on Normandy Avenue, and honestly, it makes this look like a mega church. There were about 12 congregants, all elderly or pretty old, and then there was about 8 people in the choir, and then so there's almost as many people in the choir as there were in the congregation, and then the minister. Well, about halfway through the service, one of the people in the choir falls asleep, and she's just. And my friend elbows me, and we go into this giggling fit, which cannot stop. It's like, one of those horrible, horrible things. There are only 12 people in the room, so everybody knows. And we're just like, okay, we need to get a hold of ourselves here. So after we stop laughing in the service, we go up to Carol and we go up to the minister and we're like, we are so sorry. We didn't want to say the person fell asleep, but we were so sorry we had this problem. And they're like, no problem. That's why we're here. And they point up on the wall, and up on the wall is a poem, Be Happy. And he goes, you're just doing what we're trying to preach around here anyway. And I'm like, that sounds good. So over the next year or so, I would always sit in that front row and I'd sit in this poem. And now I've given this poem to all of you guys. Everybody has a copy of it in that little handout. If you haven't, you can get it out front. But I'm going to sort of tell you the poem and break it down a little bit as I go through it. So up on the wall it says, be happy. And the first words are, happiness is infectious. Well, as we're going through this pandemic, I'd say this is what we want to catch, okay? So if we could all be catching and spreading happiness, we'd be a hell of a lot better off than catching and spreading whatever we got, right? So then the second line goes, happiness spreads like circles from a stone dropped into a placid lake in ever-widening ripples that extend into space until they reach some thought obstacle impervious to them. What are thought obstacles? That's what we're talking about in the world. Grudges, anger, greed, envy, anxiety, all these different things that we suffer from on a daily basis. So those are the thought obstacles that are impervious to happiness. And then it says, unhappiness shrinks the soul and contracts the consciousness. So I was saying yesterday, I don't know about the soul part, but I do know that unhappy people seem to be very contracted. They can only really focus on their problems. They can't see anything else. You certainly can't see the good when you only can see your problems. So it's contracted. Where happiness, when you make this decision, it lifts the load and opens avenues to greater happiness, because like attracts like. So if we're happy today, that's why Carol was so much happy. I was like, I've never been happier until tomorrow. He was happier than he was today because he was practicing it. And then it says that happiness lifts the load and opens avenues. But the key to happiness is not what we think. It's not health. And this is what was the big aha to me. Happiness is not health, wealth, success, or freedom. It's a poised accomplishment. So I'm like, it doesn't happen to us. Like, you get the job, you get the wife, and you're happy. And it's like, no, it's not how it happens. You get happy, then you get the job and the wife, and hopefully stay happy. That's what we're hoping. So being happy is a poised accomplishment regardless of appearances. A sincere attempt to be happy is sure to result in happiness. And that was the watchword of chirothesia, the hand of God. And chirothesia and unity were one and the same. The guy who ran chirothesia was friends of the Fillmores. The Fillmores were friends of him. It's really an incredible coincidence there too. So be happy is not an unfruitful suggestion, but a psychological seed capable of yielding an abundant harvest to anyone who will accept the challenge. Well, I decided right then and there I was going to accept that challenge. I don't pull it off every day, but my main intention is to be happy on a daily basis and to try to make those who I come in contact with happier, or at least not suck them down, right? So that has become my really lifelong mission. So I've decided to accept that challenge, to be happy on a daily basis, to make a sincere attempt. But how do you do it? Well, that's why we're here. That's why we're here at Unity. Carol told me two things that really woke me up. One, thoughts are things. Thoughts are things. When you think a thought, you're changing the vibration of the whole world. The second thing is we become what we think about. These two concepts, one day I'm standing in my apartment, I'm just like, oh my God, it's the whole thing. It's what we're thinking about. We are living in an outward picture of an inward condition. And when that cause and effect relationship made sense to me, I called Carl up. I'm like, so you mean it's the only thing that can get in my way or else move me on? He's like, exactly. It all starts with our thoughts. So if this is true, if thoughts are things and we become what we think about, we better be practicing our thinking. We better becoming expert thinkers. And everyone here in Unity, it's almost our duty to become an expert thinker. And the way we do that is through study, prayer, and meditation. And what Charles Fillmore says is that all causes are essentially mental. All causes are mental. And whoever comes in daily contact with this higher order of thinking is bound to take on some of it. So as we go through life, we need to be taking on more and more of it. Now, I always say that, getting in shape physically takes a lot. Hour, 2 hours a day of good working out. To get in shape mentally is really not that much. 10 to 15 minutes a day can really make a huge difference. And we've all heard it. We hear it in all the programs, prayer and meditation, the spiritual awakening. But most people don't do it. Most people do not have a daily practice of prayer and meditation, and hence the big amount of mental illness in the world. Meditation's hard. It's hard to stop the world for a minute, sit down, and take 15 minutes on a daily basis. It's not easy. And it can be boring. If things are going really good and you don't have a bunch of problems to pray about, it can be a little bit boring to meditate. But the best way to know if it works is to experience it yourself and to make it more important than anything. And here's what I can tell you from firsthand experience is that it's the difference between winning and losing this game of life. It's the difference between happiness and unhappiness, is taking control and directing our mind in the way we want. So standing up here has been my impossible dream, my vision, whatever, for a long time. And I'm about to be 60 years old this year. And I think my first opportunity of doing this was at 57 or 56, And when I was 55, today happens to be 1,879 days of consistent daily meditation. On December 1st, 2016, I'm not bragging, maybe a little bit of bragging, but not too much bragging, since I couldn't do anything for 3 days straight before this. But what it's shown me is this incredible power, exactly what they say. So even though I've wanted to be up here all these years, I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it in 2015 or 14 or 13 because I would have been full of crap. I would have been up here saying, okay, people, this is what you need to do. I don't do it. I drink tequila every day. I don't do that. But I need you guys. Here's what you do. So do as I do, not as I say, and that's not a good place to teach from. You need to teach from do as I say, do as I do, And if I can come from there, I don't really care if you do it or not. I'm just saying it works for me, and it's what Unity tells us to do. It's what AA tells us to do. It's what everything tells us to do. So now we've had this spiritual awakening, and I realize there's a higher way. There's a power greater than myself. I'm getting in connection with it, and then what happens? Nothing. Nothing really happens. That's the big problem with the spiritual awakening. Everybody's hoping this great thing happens, and suddenly the money starts flowing in, and all the friends, it doesn't work that way. And that was sort of a little bit of a shocker too, but we've all heard the Zen saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. But after enlightenment, we chop wood and carry water in gratitude and love. This whole thing becomes a lot more fun. and when we chop water and carry wood with an attitude that sucks, then that's how most people do it. That's how most people go through life, struggling. So, after the awakening, gratitude and love. So we have to be careful of a few pitfalls. After we've had this spiritual awakening, there's a couple of errors. I mean, there's probably lots of errors, but there's two that I want to point out today. And the first is thinking God's going to do it for us. It's one of the things I hear all the time. Oh, God will do it. God will figure it out. I'm like, oh, it hasn't worked for me like that, Maybe it will work for you. But what I've seen is that we have to take action. And Carol, two of his favorite words were action. Let's go, varsity. We have to take action. And I don't know if you guys remember the story of the pastor driving down the street and he's looking at these beautiful farms, and there's one farm that's just out of control beautiful, not a grass seed out of place. And he pulls up to that farm, and the farmer pulls up to the pastor, and the pastor says, "My, what a beautiful farm God has blessed you with." And the farmer looked at the pastor. He said, "Yes, I am so grateful for this farm, but you should have seen what it looked like when God had it all to himself." Okay? So if we want something in our life, we need to take action. And yes, God will help us along the way, but we need to take action. So I found, what I found is God's a lot like electricity. I use it all the time, but I don't really understand it. So I'll plug in there, and if I plug in, I can heat my house, I can cool my house, I can play music, I can do incredibly good things. I can also electrocute myself, I can also, blow up the house if I do it wrong, so that I can use it for good or bad, depending on my intention, but I don't really, truly understand it. But I know if I plug in, it's going to give me a certain power. Well, God, to me, has sort of proved that same thing. He doesn't really care if I plug in or not, but when I do plug in, the blessings are incredible. Like being able to stand here right now with a full room of people. I mean, it's just, it's unbelievable. So, but we do have to plug in. And, so like electricity, it doesn't seem that the universe really cares if we plug in or not, but if we do plug in, a lot of things happen. So God's not going to do it for you. It says that God is no respecter of persons. But then, in a little while later, it says, but with God, we are a majority. So as long as we stay connected, this power will do whatever we ask. With God, all things are possible. And then you guys remember the story, the same thing, too, with worried about God doing it for us, is the two guys in the lion, going across the field. And the one guy goes up the tree, and the other guy's like, no, God will protect me. And the other one's like, get up the tree! And he's like, no, God will protect me. He's like, listen, come up the tree. And the lion comes across the field and eats the guy. And he's up at the pearly gates. He's like, whoa, what happened? I trusted you. He's like, I told you to get up the tree 3 times. And so we need to take action. God's not going to do it for us. We need to keep taking action. I love those two stories. They're always ones. So God's really not interested in solving the problems which we've created outside of our natural condition, outside of our truth. He gives us what we need to replace those problems, but not really interested in solving them. So God is omnipotent and omniscient, but we have to tell him. The second error is getting in the stuck, and we talked about this in meditation a little bit this morning, but it's getting stuck in the future and the past. Everything's going to be better when, or everything was better when. And either one, it seems to be past regrets and future expectations are the thieves of happiness. Future tripping, it'll all be better when. And past regrets and remorse are two things that just tie us out of this present moment, out of this moment of alignment. And what Carol explained to me, and he meditated twice a day, morning and night. And he said it's a continual renewal of the mind. It's not something we do once. We don't just have this one-time spiritual awakening. It is a continual progress. We claim progress, not perfection. So happiness seems to be very much in the here and now, something that we can choose moment to moment in our daily lives. And as I said before, our lives are really just an outward picture of an inward condition. If we want this outward picture to change, we need to change this inward condition. How do we do that? My good friend Mary Beth and Ron are here. They come to the Harmony, and Mary Beth gave me this is a Braille bracelet with Ho'oponopono on it. I love you, thank you, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Those are really the key thoughts to making this whole thing work on this planet. So happiness is an inside job. We have to learn to really somehow live in this insane world, but be not of this world. Be not sucked into it. Put ourselves first. Seek first his kingdom, because we are a majority. And to me, alignment really ends up being the solution. Coming into alignment with God each and every day. So the Harmony exercise, which everyone's available to. I have a website, theharmonyexercise.com. I put a new Harmony exercise up each and every day, and it's free of charge. You can go on there, but it's amazing metaphysical renewal. So the words God is, I am, those are the ones that really keep us connected to Spirit. So the world's full of problems. We can focus on them, or this week a lot, for some reason, Daniel in the lion's den came up a lot in some different places I were, and they said, if you ever seen the picture of Daniel in the lion's den? So I went on the internet, and in all the pictures of Daniel in the lion's den, he's in the lion's den, he's looking up at God, and all the lions are behind him, calm as can be. But he's keeping his eye on connected into the light, and then the lions don't bother you. Turn around. The ego wants us to turn around and see all those lions. I'll promise you that. So, really, that's what I want to talk about today, is just happiness being a choice. And we can all choose it. I hope that you got a little something out of today, and that the poem on the wall, that Be Happy poem, I've read it for years and years and years. It just never gets old. And realizing that happiness doesn't happen to us, it happens through us. So please try the Harmony exercise. And as my good friend and coach Kevin Rice says, if no one's told you they love you today, let me be the first. I love you so much, and thank you so much for putting up with me. I hope to see you again. And by the way, give a lot of money today so Bodie will invite me back again.